Alright, so I'm Sarah Herring, and this is my portfolio. I started off with this quote, "Happiness comes when we stop complaining about the troubles we have and offer thanks for all of the troubles we don't have." I think this applies to all of high school. It's important to remember that our education is important and we should be thankful for it. Also, I think it means that you can overcome challenges, and specifically to me, when I got to high school, I wasn't used to studying in general. I didn't know how to learn exactly, and that's one of the biggest things I've taken away from high school. In middle school, I got straight A's and I never had to study and I didn't have to take home anything. So when I got to high school and I sat down in my Spanish class for a Spanish quiz, I realized that I couldn't just know another language on the top of my head. So I went home and talked to my dad, and we came up with a study schedule, and they actually made me read 2 books on how to study, and at the time I was against it, but it really has benefited me, and I've taken that and applied it to every class, and so now I know how to study, and that's what's prepared me the most for college. First thing in the portfolio is my resume, and it's just an overview of what I've done in high school, what I'm involved in. I'm the captain of the girls cross country and track team. I'm also in DECA, Yearbook, Senate, and AVID, and also some job experience on there as well. And then with my test results, the ACT I took 3 times, and the first 2 times I got a 23, which was disappointing because I hoped to improve and I got the same exact thing again. But the 3rd time, after more studying and more, I took a practice test almost every Saturday up until, which was a lot of time, but I got a 26, so it helped and it showed. My SAT I took just as a backup plan, just in case I needed it for college, and I got like exactly average on that, which I was okay with. It was a little bit of a harder format for me, so I was okay with that. And then the park, the EOC, and the SBA, I really don't remember specifically because we've had so many of them, but I remember they were pretty easy and I passed them. All right, and then for my teacher recognition, this was really hard for me, and I'll talk about it more later, but I really want to be a teacher, and I've always wanted to be a teacher. So in every class, I look at my teachers, and something sticks out to me about all of them, and so it's hard to choose. But I chose Mr. Kamen, and he was a math teacher here, but he moved schools, I think he's at Sandia now. But his teaching style was amazing. It worked for me so well. He engaged with the students. He would see what went wrong with the whole class, and instead of moving on, he'd specifically cater to that. Also, it was pretty formal. He would do notes, assignments, tests, but he also paid attention individually, so after he gave the whole class notes, he'd come to you and work with you on something and then move on, which I thought was really incredible. I had him for 2 years because he moved up math classes with us, and he had a student teacher from UNM, and I was able to see the way she shaped into a teacher, and it was amazing, and I hope that I can teach like them one day. So for my writing assignments, I have an essay from my sophomore year with Miss Gorel, and I did well on it, but it took me 2 to 3 hours, which I was not happy with because I knew in the next year I would have to do 1 in 40 minutes for my timed AP essays. So although I was able to complete it, it felt like this huge project, and it was harder to do. So the next year, I included a essay on daylight savings time with Miss Eberhardt, and I was really proud because I got a good grade and I did it in 40 minutes. So it made writing easier. I won't have to sit down and write college essays in 2 hours. I could get a few done in a timely manner. Next are my critical thinking assignments. The first one is a PowerPoint on, it was a subway project in DECA, This was really interesting because we sat down with the owner of Subway and talked about how he was getting very little business, and so he wanted to increase his profits by 20%. So our group went in and took surveys with the employees and the customers and found out what was going wrong. After that, we had to create a marketing plan that he had to follow for 1 year. So this was a 20-minute presentation and a 30-page paper, which was really hard, but it was cool to apply things we learned in DECA to a real-life situation. My next critical thinking assignment it's called a tutorial, and it's something that we do in AVID. So if you have trouble on a problem in class or on a test, you write it down and then you sit with your peers and get help if you can. They'll help you list the steps and work it out on the board. And then you go in a circle and help other people who struggle with something maybe you know better. This is fun also because I want to be a teacher and I was able to help people with that. My favorite assignments, my first one's a poetry book from my sophomore year with Ms. Gorel, and this was fun because it was the first kind of off-rubric thing. It was open to us to interpret and do however we wanted, and that was really fun just to get away from that and be creative with it. My second favorite assignment is a math test, and that doesn't sound great to everybody, but I picked that one specifically because I prefer algebra over geometry, and those are some of the most basic algebra problems. And I also want to teach algebra, so it was a fun assignment. Okay, reflections. So for math, I already talked about a little with Mr. Cameron. I had him freshman and sophomore year, and those were the best years I'd had because I loved his learning style and just made it really easy for me. Junior year, I had Miss Bannock, and her teaching style wasn't much different from Mr. Cameron's, but she didn't really stop, so we definitely moved along faster. And that is something you have to get used to because they're not going to stop in college, so I accepted that. And then this year, I had Mr. Stevenson for a dual credit class, and this was pretty much all on your own, so it was easy, but it's nice to review everything. And then, oh, I'm talking too fast, I'm out of breath. Okay, for science, my freshman year I had Miss Hendrickson, and this was really fun because it was hands-on and we did a lot of labs, and that was a fun class. Sophomore year I had Mrs. Rudder, and unfortunately I had her the year she got diagnosed with breast cancer. So we did have a substitute for the rest of the year, and we kind of missed out on a lot, but just had to deal with that. The next year I had Miss Caldwell for physics, and that was also a really fun class because that's something I just didn't know a lot about. I remember all my parents and family trying to explain things in life and about physics, and I never understood till then, so that was cool. And then senior year, I didn't need a science, but I took anatomy just because I was interested in it. And that class you can take seriously or as a joke. A lot of people choose to take it as a joke because there's no due dates, which is nice, but I learned that I need to keep myself on track and make my own due dates, which is really important also. For social studies, my freshman year, I had Miss Kelly for New Mexico history, and it was just interesting to learn more about New Mexico, where you're from. That's always a good thing. Sophomore year, I had Miss Hudgens for world history. That was also fun because I had never learned geography before that, even in elementary school, and I got teased for that all the time. But I finally learned how to make my 50 states. And then my junior year, I had Miss Gardner for AP US history, and that was also a really good class. Because it was AP, we did a lot of essays, but it was nice to compare different historic events with each other and kind of see the same causes to some things, and it's really interesting. And then for English, my freshman year, I had Mr. Fairley, who was the PE coach, and he had one English class, so we didn't do any English ever. So I didn't feel prepared going into my next years, but sophomore year I had Miss Squirrel, and she prepares you fast. So that class was hard. We had a lot of quizzes on the most detailed things in books, like what color shirt they were wearing, or which seems silly, but it really causes you to pay more attention. And now in class, we are required to analyze things, and it becomes easier because you realize you're paying more attention to everything in the book. So, so junior and senior year of English, I've learned the most out of high school, I think, because I've really got to analyze everything that I'm reading, and that's always important. All right, and then electives and extracurricular activities. Been in DECA for 3.5 years, Senate for 2 years, AVID for 2 years because I didn't even know that it was a program, and I wish I would have joined sooner. Yearbook for 4 years, and I was an editor this year. JMP, which is like a job mentorship program, and then cross country and track. All right, and then school involvement. I was also part of homecoming court, got princess, and I was also junior escort, and just put pictures. I've been to a lot of the soccer games and football games. I try to support every team. Also, just like, I didn't really talk about AVID, but joining AVID has made me so involved in everything. I try to get other students also involved that aren't in AVID. Like for example, most of the students here don't know about like ACT waivers, which is something really important, so we try to let everyone know about that, how you can get 2 free tests. So that has involved me a lot in school. And then my life goals and aspirations. This is my grandma, and she started out as an elementary school teacher and then moved up to a principal and then moved up to superintendent. And she was a superintendent in Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. and San Francisco. So she, is very inspiring. She, along with a bunch of my family members, work in education among various colleges and schools. So I hope to start out as a teacher and eventually move up to something more. And then I also have awards in my portfolio. There's track, cross country, GPA, academic, and yeah, that's the end.
So what grade level in teaching?
I think I would like high school because I like algebra.
But you could do that in mid school.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I also had pre-calculus, which I liked because it was more like algebra in depth, so I think that would be something too. But I can't really say middle school or high school.
It's just, being a math teacher, there's a weak link in mid schools, and so I'm trying to encourage because it would be the really bright kids.
Yeah.
If you taught the algebra in mid school.
That's true.
You've done so much. Was that a challenge to balance everything, being track?
It was, but I think with making like my studying schedule and stuff, my freshman year immediately going in, it helped me the rest of high school. And I know people still struggle with that, and I think when I'm a teacher, that's something I want to include in my classroom, like college prep and learning how to study, because I think people don't even realize that they don't know how to study, and that's one of the most important things. So, yeah.
I don't see any holes. Do you see any holes?
Oh, and you have a really clear vision for your future. Do you know where you're going to college next year?
I am going to UNM.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. And are you going to be in the honors college or?
Potentially, we'll see. I guess I'll look into it. Yeah. I'm trying. I'm hoping I can get my master's in like 5 years total. My 4 undergrad and then 1 more year if I can possibly.
Oh, and did it say here somewhere you wanted to live on the coast or?
It did say that I do eventually want to leave New Mexico, but I also see where there could be help in the Albuquerque public system. So I think if I could like reach a superintendent level, that'd be worth staying here for.
Great. Well, thanks. It's very
Thank you.